Yo, what's good YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, this was requested by a couple of you guys. You guys wanted me to react to what if Gojo was from the Heian era. If you don't know what the Heian era is that's where the era that Sukuna was born in. I don't know how this video is gonna go, but in my personal opinion, if Gojo was born in the Heian era, he would be a problem. I'm not gonna lie, because apparently that's where the strongest sorcerers were born in, was the Heian era. So without further ado, also this video is by Alan's Y. Shout out to you, my boy. So without further ado, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share the video with friends, and let's get into it.
To this day, one of the hottest topics in JJK is whether Gojo could have beaten Heian form Sukuna with no Maharaga.
Yep.
But let's be honest, that topic has been covered more times than Sukuna has made binding vows, so
Gojo slams.
I've decided to put a much more interesting spin on it. In chapter 230, Sukuna taunts Gojo for not being able to open his domain. Sukuna basically said that Gojo was lucky not to be born in the same era as him, because then he would never have been called the strongest. So in this video, we're gonna see if that statement is actually true.
Yeah, when he said that, I was like, reading the manga, when he said that, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna lie, you're lucky that he wasn't born in that era, to be honest. But like, when you think of the factors that Kenjaku's like killing off the Six Sides users, like when they were like born and he was trying to kill them off and stuff, like we probably wouldn't even got Gojo. But if he were to survive, yeah, Sukuna would not be the strongest, let's be honest.
By exploring what would have happened if Satoru Gojo was born in the Heian era. I already know some people are going to struggle to comprehend that this video is simply a fun hypothetical, but guess what? I don't care, go cry about it. Also, I know some people will take Sukuna's
Facts. You know, keep making your videos, man. Don't, don't let nobody tear you down. Keep making videos. This video is probably going to be goated.
Statement as gospel because they're crazy glazers, but they are forgetting the fact that Sukuna said this thinking he had won. Sukuna continued to call Gojo ordinary just before his brain turned to soup and Gojo started beating his ass so hard Sukuna started crying for his mummy.
I already love this guy. I'm not gonna lie.
So yeah, there is a very
one thing Sukuna fans won't ever accept. Yeah, at the end of the day, Gojo did die, right? And there was factors to him dying. Mind you, he was fighting three people. Three of the strongest things in the verse. Two of the strongest things in the verse and one of the strongest sorcerers in the verse. And, like, the fact is that people don't understand that, like, Gojo was putting on the best performance of his life, bro. He was beating Sukuna's ass so hard. But Sukuna fans can't accept that factor. They just think he's like just all powerful and amazing, when in actuality Sukuna in every close combat altercation he was losing. He was getting toe up. I'm not gonna lie, he was losing.
Real discussion to be had here, but it is just a hypothetical, so if you disagree and it's actually for a valid reason, then that's fine. Also, no, Gojo being in the Heian era does not just make him Sugawara Michizane. They are completely different people with completely different levels of strength, and we don't even know if their abilities work the same way. Having the same technique does not make you the same person.
That is true. That is very true. I'm already loving this guy.
Anyway, let's start off by seeing what Gojo would have been like in the Heian era, and then pitch him against the prime Heian era Sukuna to see who the real strongest would have been. Okay, we're gonna start off by quickly exploring if Gojo would also awaken in the Heian era. Now, when I made a poll asking if you want to see this video, a lot of people said...
we have seen two Heian era sorcerers, kinda. We've seen Yuzuru versus Sukuna, and that I would say that fight is very, very entertaining. I can't wait for it to get actually shown in the show. The fight is going to be very, very nice. Yeah, in the manga it was shown to be very, very short, but like it's just the dynamic and the altercations that the two sorcerers had with each other was actually very entertaining in the manga, so I can't wait for it to be shown in the anime.
There's no point because Gojo would just die before awakening, to which I am going to respond with, are you dumb? Sorcerers weren't just instantly killed as children because it was the Heian era. He could very easily grow up just as Uro Yorozu and all the other sorcerers did. It's not like Sukuna went around hunting children sorcerers, you know?
Yeah, no. Sukuna was pretty much minding his own business, to be honest. If you did... Basically, my understanding of Sukuna, mind you, as much as I hate the character, since... in his prime, he was basically sitting at like a shrine, minding his own business, and you could see like a panel of Urame by him. And this is when I was talking about Yorozu and Sukuna, this is how Yorozu died, because she touched Sukuna and Sukuna slashed her. But like the fact is, the dude was just sitting there minding his own business. He just didn't care about anything, to be honest. No.
If anything, he'd want them to grow up to be an actual opponent for him. The only way this would actually be the case is if Kenjaku killed him as a baby, and
Yeah, that's exactly what I was mentioning, bro. Freaking Kenjaku.
I'm pretty sure he wasn't doing that yet. Plus, if that did happen, Gojo would be dead and there would be no video, so for everybody's sake, I'm gonna assume that he actually grows up. Now, Gojo's soul and innate personality would remain intact, but he would likely be much less arrogant than he was in the Hidden Inventory arc. In our time, pre-RCT Gojo was still pretty much uncontested as the strongest, but in the Heian era, that would not be the case. A sorcerer with a strong-ass domain, like Yorozu, would likely wipe the floor with Teen Gojo. Now, Gojo...
Yeah, and it sucks to, like, hear that, but you gotta think about it, is that Heian era sorcerers were, like, insane, right? Mind you, do I think Gojo. Anyways, sorry. Do I think Gojo would automatically lose to Yorozu? No, mainly because Gojo is a smart fighter, right? Do I think he would eventually lose without the awakening? Eventually, yeah. If she uses her perfect sphere, then yeah.
Being the absolutely insane natural talent that he is, awakened his reverse curse technique when he finally got humbled and put close to death by Toji Fushiguro. Considering the fact Teen Gojo in the Heian era would have much less need for humbling and have more experiences with tougher opponents, he would still be capable of learning reverse curse technique, auto infinity, red and purple. Gojo's isolation in being the strongest would also likely still be a thing after awakening and learning infinite void, because he would then wipe the floor with pretty much everybody except Sukuna and maybe the Vengeful Spirits. The point of this is that his fighting style and desire to actually be challenged will remain intact. However, he will also have a more survival of the fittest mindset that comes with growing up in the Heian era. Our Gojo grew up so much stronger than anything else, hence why he was so arrogant and also why he was not living up to his own potential. Once Toji taught him that he wasn't truly the strongest, he was then able to awaken and reach his full potential. So yes, Gojo will be capable of reaching the strength he is now, and that's because he will have been actually challenged since birth. We have established Heian Gojo can reach modern Gojo's strength, and that his personality/mindset would be relatively similar, so it's now time to get into the most important point of the video. Not only can Heian era Gojo match modern Gojo's strength, he could potentially be much stronger, and I mean levels stronger.
Yeah, because like what he said, survival of the fittest, in the Heian era, like, there was more, how do I say this? There was more freedom to use your curse technique, I would say that. I think that's how it was explained. There was more, like, you would have to learn it on, like on the fly, or you would just have to learn it as you go, you know? So I feel like he would, like, find different ways. Because if you think about it, like, in the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, when he used those blue sphere technique, and then he summoned multiple blues to, like, target Sukuna, that was something that we've never seen until the actual fight. That means, like, Gojo could have, like, done way more. Just imagine Gojo's an adult, right? Just imagine if Gojo was in his 40s, right? Just imagine of what type of techniques, if he still fought, like, people like Sukuna, and they were just coming at him. Just imagine of how far his technique would develop. People say he was at his peak. I don't think so. I feel like there's still more to come with Gojo. There would have been more to come with Gojo, but, you know, he's dead, so.
There are many reasons I think this, but before I get into them, I want to remind you that this is purely hypothetical, because we know all about the Heian era. Any silly comments that still complain about
we only know bits and pieces of the Heian era, to be honest.
About this will be met with responses exclusively in rice ball ingredients, because I cannot be bothered. Anyway, my main reason for thinking he can be stronger is simply because of how level Jujutsu was in the Heian era. Kenjaku, Sukuna, and Yorozu are obviously the best examples of how the Heian era was just a higher level, but after all these years, the information was slowly lost. For instance, Yorozu suggests that she knows about Shrine, so Shrine's details were likely known in the Heian era. Sukuna also seemed surprised when Jogo wasn't aware of how Shrine worked, but then he realized even if there were records, a cursed spirit wouldn't have access to that information. So now I'm gonna run through all of the lost abilities that were present in the Heian era and why Heian Gojo could potentially learn them. The first major ability, which was considered impossible in modern times until Sukuna revealed it, is an open domain barrier. Both Sukuna and Kenjaku...
Dude, Just this was this. I think this was discussed a while back, dude. Chat. Just imagine an open domain of unlimited void. Just imagine that. Do you know how cracked Gojo would be if he had an open domain of unlimited void instead of closed one, and he can do both like Sukuna? And we don't even know if he can't do both. I'm assuming he can't, but just imagine if he could, bro. That would change the gaming field so much, bro. Like honestly, like in the Sukuna versus Gojo fight, that was been so game changing, to be honest.
Two Heian era sorcerers have open domain barriers, and it's not like Sukuna and Kenjaku were training buddies or anything, so it's unlikely that one of them taught this to the other. They would have learnt it completely independently from each other, suggesting that open barriers were slightly more common knowledge in the Heian era. I'm not saying they were common knowledge or many people could use them, but they were definitely a thing. And no, just because Kenjaku taught Sukuna how to split his soul does not mean he taught him other stuff. That was purely for Kenjaku's plan and part of their binding vow.
Yeah, it was just for Kenjaku's benefit at the end of the day. Kenjaku's not going to do something if it doesn't benefit him.
Considering how many sorcerers fought Sukuna in the Heian era and how widely known his strength was, the fact that he has an open domain barrier would surely be widely known too. In modern times, Gojo only became aware of the possibility of an open barrier during the fight, or at most a month before the fight. However, if Satoru Gojo grew up in the Heian era knowing it was a thing, not only would he be more prepared to deal with it,
nothing makes me angrier when I get home from a long day and I just want to relax and watch YouTube, and then boom, you get hit with those really long unskippable ads.
That's crazy how you say unskippable ads, but you're like doing an ad right now.
But there's also a good chance he could learn it for himself. There is no denying that Gojo's level of genius for Jujutsu is contested only by Sukuna.
This scene right here, chats. This dude really ripped the tail of Agito off. I'm assuming that if I remember correctly, that's what he did. But like, you gotta give credit when credit is due. And people say that Gojo can't beat any other anime characters like this. He can't beat like people that can warp time and crap. But like, obviously that's like near impossible. But like, in hand-to-hand combat, Gojo is the best in his verse. Like, he is just imagine, bro. Just imagine it. Like, just imagine when this gets animated, man. It's going to put Gojo on like a higher scale. Like when you see it in the manga, it's like insane, right? It's cool. But when it gets animated, that's like when it goes from meh to boom, you know? To meh to boom, you know? Gojo was moving in this scene. And like the fact that he was thinking this whole time as he was fighting, he was on timing.
Higuruma, Yuta, and Yuji could also be contenders, but we haven't really seen enough of that from them yet. In the middle of their fight, Gojo constantly adjusted the properties of his barrier, and Sukuna did the same. Now, according to Kusakabe GPT, this should be completely impossible, but Gojo
Kusakabe GPT, bro. This dude's hilarious.
Is simply that guy. If he can learn to change conditions mid-battle, imagine if he had prior knowledge of open domain barriers and the time to perfect it.
Imagine if he had okay, hear me out, chat. I know I've been stopping the video. I'm sorry. I just like, I'm trying to be more interactive in my videos. But like, just imagine, right? Imagine if Gojo, how Sukuna had knowledge of Gojo's abilities, right? Just imagine if Gojo had knowledge of all of Sukuna's abilities and how they worked. The fight would be so different. It would be so different. It wouldn't even be like, it would be like a legit no diff for Gojo. It would just be, because like, go instantly when Sukuna would pop his domain, Gojo would just speed blitz him.
If Sukuna and Kenjaku can do it, then best believe Gojo does have the raw talent to do it, given the time and knowledge. I'll expand more on this later, but Gojo would straight up low diff that fight against Heian era Sukuna if he also had an open domain barrier.
Thank you, my man. Thank you, bro. I'm glad somebody explained this, like, is explaining this and get like how strong Gojo actually is, bro. Like,
but for Sukuna's sake, let's just assume that he can't use it for now. He will still know about it going into a fight with Sukuna, meaning he will have time to plan a strategy as opposed to improvising mid-fight.
And Gojo would do that because, like, Gojo is knowledgeable. Gojo's a smart dude in battle.
Now, I'm not saying this will mean Gojo can win, but it will give him better odds. Now, this next one is a lot less simple since it is unconfirmed whether Sukuna actually knew this ability already or if he learned it from Gojo during the fight. But if healing a burnt-out curse technique was also common knowledge in the Heian era, Gojo will know that there is a limit to how often it can be done and change his strategy accordingly. I think this one is much less likely to be widely known, and there's a good chance that Gojo was straight up the one to invent the technique, but who knows? Simply put, if he knew about the limitations, he would not have pushed himself to the point of losing his domain. Again, I'm not saying this means he will win the fight, but it will give him better odds, and we are going to discuss this more later. Now,
Gojo's odds of winning this fight were already high. You guys got to think about that. They were already high. Because, like, Sukuna couldn't beat him in close combat. Yeah, there was, like, at the beginning of the thing when he did get a little bit of the upper hand on Gojo, but he couldn't beat him in close combat, really. You know, so that was out of the question for him, you know. Dismantle wouldn't work. Cleave and Dismantle wouldn't work, really. Like, his... Okay, let me stop that. Yeah, actually, both. Both Cleave and Dismantle won't work because Gojo was activates Infinity to protect him, right? Which is smart. And Sukuna can't risk being hit because Gojo infuses his punches with blue, if you guys don't know, and that makes it stronger and that makes the force more impactable. You know?
Fully put Heian Gojo and Heian Sukuna against each other, I'm gonna first clarify some key differences between current Sukuna and actual Heian era.
And Gojo's physically strong as shit, bro.
Sukuna. First off, he'll have no 10 Shadows technique and no vessel. He is just him. Then there is the fact that he is already in Heian form, meaning higher output and better hand-to-hand kick.
And people really said that I remember in the Shinjuku fight, people were really saying when Sukuna was fighting everybody, basically no diffing all the sorcerers. Mind you, they were just high school. They were basically beginning sorcerers. Some of them were just beginning sorcerers or whatever. But you got to think about it. Is that like... my bad. Brain fart. But some people said that, Sukuna still has 10 shadows. And then when you think about, at the beginning, you already know he doesn't have 10 shadows. But some people saying he did because he had that other variant of his domain. And, it's just, you can tell that he doesn't have his 10 shadows because why would he have it when he has, Kamatoke in his true form? He wouldn't need it.
Abilities, but it also means that Sukuna will not have a backup healing plan. There'll also be more of an information gap on Sukuna's part. He won't know what Infinite Void does in detail, nor will he know that touching Gojo actually protects you from it.
Yeah, and that would be really bad for Sukuna.
And this is simply because anyone who has been trapped in Infinite Void won't live to tell the tale, and Gojo won't exactly be walking around explaining it to people. Of course, this is assuming that Gojo uses a closed barrier as opposed to an open one, because onlookers of an open barrier will be able to tell what's going on. And finally, there is Kamatoke and Heian, although we have zero clue about what Heian does, so We
don't know what Heian does. I'm assuming it's literally just I'm assuming it's just a spear. Obviously, because it's a spear. Duh. No crap. But I'm assuming it's just his melee weapon, up close.
Not even gonna guess, because the odds are Infinity completely renders them both useless anyway. So now that I have covered Heian Gojo's potential and Heian Sukuna's differences, it's finally time to pitch them against each other and see who would actually be crowned as the strongest. Because there are lots of hypotheticals and assumptions involved, I'm gonna split the fight into different scenarios.
Don't you want a better gaming PC that's built with the right hardware
but I will
at a fair price?
Bro, I don't care,
Redux
bro.
has that.
Get off my screen.
For scenario one.
Before we get into this nitty-gritty, I will say that Sukuna is smart in his own right, obviously, because he thought of a way to bypass Gojo's Infinity, which is, it pains me to say it, it is smart, right? Can't hate him for that. I don't respect the 3v1 that he did against Gojo, but at the end of the day, he did what was necessary for him to win. Because a lot of people said that he was holding back against Gojo, and that is completely not the case. Let's be honest. Let's dissect it, right? Let's go to back, during the fight. You got to think about it, is that it's not that he was holding back, it was that he was saving his curse energy, because Sukuna already knew he was going to have to fight the rest of the cast. And if he ran out of curse energy and used everything against Gojo, and still not sure if he was going to win against him, then he would have no curse energy and he would just get no diffed by probably Kusakabe. So who knows?
We are assuming that Gojo has learned how to use an open domain barrier, and that is literally the only assumption we are going to go off, because if Gojo does have an open domain barrier, literally everything else becomes irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, Gojo will just low diff that fight. Gojo and Sukuna's domains are equal in terms of refinement, and their guaranteed hits cancel out. Without
Gojo's domain is a little bit better, to be honest.
Without a physical barrier for Sukuna to target, he cannot break Gojo's domain, meaning Gojo can still use Infinity and the rest of the Limitless technique. This means that they've got to hand-to-hand it until one of them does enough damage for the opposing domain to fail. And in a hand-to-hand...
And in hand-to-hand, I'm talking about you, Sukuna fans. In hand-to-hand combat, Sukuna is losing. Sukuna is losing in hand-to-hand combat, and you cannot say nothing, bro. I'm sorry. Sukuna is going to get no diffed in a hand-to-hand combat scenario.
Fight with Infinity active and no Maharaga, Gojo whoops Sukuna's ass 10 out of 10 times. I mean, we have literally seen it happen, there is no denying this. It really doesn't matter how many arms or tools Sukuna has. With Domain Amp being the only way to land a hit, Sukuna really just gets cooked. Sure, Sukuna's Heian form in theory increases Malevolent Shrine's output, but there has been nothing stating it would improve the actual domain's refinement. It's very...
Yeah, and people said that, oh, having more arms, he would just be, like, physically, like, stronger. He might be physically stronger, but that does not improve his chances at hand-to-hand combat. That's two different things, right? It does not make him more efficient in hand-to-hand combat. It will have him more options, but it does not make him more efficient in hand-to-hand combat. Definitely not against Gojo.
Very simple. If Sukuna cannot outright destroy Gojo's domain, he just gets low diff. I mean, here, let me just show you what it would look like, okay? Now for...
Okay. Dude, I love this dude, bro. This dude's funny as heck.
Scenario 2, we're going to assume that Gojo does know about the open barrier, but he cannot use one for himself. We are also going to assume that neither Gojo nor Sukuna had prior knowledge on healing a burnt out curse technique. And yes, in case you're wondering, Gojo will get some kind of assumption per scenario, like knowing about the open barrier, because without it, it just becomes normal Gojo, which defeats the whole point of the video. Due to Gojo's personality being much the same, and him not knowing about the limitations of curse technique burnout, this scenario should play out very similarly to that actual fight, despite knowing about the open barrier. If Gojo somehow makes it past the first clash, he will still keep trying to expand a domain until he completely burns out. Now, anime fans, please try not to get too excited when I say this, but we're actually gonna do some scaling real quick. Utahime's boost brought Gojo to 120% output, but Gojo's own hand signs and chants pushed it up to 200%. So let's assume that Heian Sukuna's output with hand signs and chants also allows for an 80% increase in output. Considering Gojo's wounds were deep but not fatal against Megana, it's likely an 80% increase from Heian form Sukuna would at very least render Gojo incapable of fighting. And in that case, Sukuna does just win. However, if Gojo can somehow survive long enough to use Falling Blossom Emotion or Simple Domain and then heal his curse technique, he does have a chance. Let's assume...
I would say... I would say Gojo would be able to still tank Sukuna's slashes even in his Heian air form, right? Mainly because if Yuji's able to heal, mind you, Yuji just learned RCT. If Yuji's able to heal from a cleave, right? And I know that's different than a dismantle, but cleave is essentially stronger than a dismantle, right? Cleave is like he's physically touching you and he's adjusting his slashes to your curse energy, in your durability, right? So it's basically stronger. I feel like if Yuji's able to heal from that, Gojo's able to tank it for sure. Tank a dismantle for sure.
That the first two clashes are just about survivable for Gojo. Gojo will not have Prison Realm experience, so he cannot reduce the size of his barrier. But at the same time, Sukuna cannot deactivate the sure hit inside of Gojo's barrier to increase output outside of the barrier because he doesn't know he can touch Gojo to survive it. Now let's assume Gojo's loss of protection equals Sukuna's loss of output. Sukuna is still in Heian form. He still gets that 80% boost. Not only does this mean he can tank more damage, but it also means he can make up for the
Sukuna... His hand form was pretty tanky. I will say that. It was super, super tanky.
output loss so that Gojo will lose every single domain clash he gets into. Basically, Sukuna wins in this scenario low to mid diff. Now this final scenario follows the same assumptions as the previous, but this time both Gojo and Sukuna already know how to heal their curse technique and they know about the limitations. Now this knowledge could completely change Gojo's approach to combating Sukuna, since he won't want to constantly try and reopen his domain and eventually burn out. Now the first domain clash would pretty much go the same way in order for Gojo to test the waters and see if his domain can beat Sukuna's. After realizing their domains have equal refinement, but Sukuna wins from the outside, one of two things will happen. Either Gojo will get instantly shredded by Malevolent Shrine, which I don't think is likely, or Gojo survives just long enough to heal his curse technique. Since he already knows how to do this, he would likely only have to survive for a few seconds and then use blue to exit Sukuna's domain. Now Gojo is not dumb. If he knows that constantly healing his curse technique will destroy his brain and remove Infinite Void, he will not do it any more than necessary. And remember that Gojo's speed with blue is levels faster than Sukuna, so much so that it's
literally, bro, Gojo is legit the fastest in the verse, like legit
mistaken for teleportation, so he can easily exit an open domain. If Gojo aims to simply avoid Malevolent Shrine for the duration of the fight, Sukuna will be forced to give—
Bro, can we just take a look at my king, bro? Look at my glorious king, chat. Look how crazy he looks. Bro, he's ready for that. And this is one of the coldest panels too, because like you got like a lot of you know, choreograph and stuff in these couple. There's another panel after this, but you get a lot of choreograph and up close stuff with these panels.
Give up on catching Gojo inside of his domain. Of course, Sukuna could fix this issue by enclosing his domain in a barrier, but then he can't break Gojo's domain and will end up with a result like scenario 1. If Gojo does use this strategy, he again low diffs Sukuna, but that's only if Gojo chooses to fight this way and if he can survive Heian Sukuna's domain for long enough. Overall, I'd give this scenario an even 50-50 between them because I can see it going either way. Given that Sukuna had Heian era knowledge and info on Gojo, whereas Gojo had jack shit, it's clear to see why Sukuna vs modern Gojo would almost always go Sukuna's way. But despite the information gap and Maharaga, Sukuna was still surprised at how close that fight actually turned out to be. Remember, Sukuna had a plan, whereas Gojo was improvising and still made the fight go way longer than Sukuna expected. After all, Sukuna thought he had won in chapter 230, but Gojo ended up just being him. Although not every scenario goes this way, Heian era Gojo overall just has better odds than a modern era Gojo. And the most significant difference was definitely the possibility of an open domain barrier. Pair Gojo's crazy natural talent for Jujutsu with prior knowledge of open domains and the time to learn it, and I genuinely believe Gojo straight up low diff Sukuna. But again, these are all just hypotheticals. The point is—
No, they're not hypotheticals. This is facts. Let's be honest. This is facts. Let's be honest.
Odds are just much better in the Heian era. Therefore, Sukuna was just wrong. I mean, if anything, Sukuna was lucky that Gojo wasn't born in his era. Giving Gojo access to all—
Gojo would bully Sukuna in that era. Gojo would be known as the big bully. Let me stop.
All of that high-level Jujutsu knowledge would simply make him far more challenging than current Gojo ever was. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up the video. I know some people will really like this video, and some people will absolutely despise it, but at the end of the day, I made the video for fun and because I wanted to, and I shall continue to do exactly that with every video I make. But anyway, please do not forget to like and sub, feel free to join the Discord and follow me on Twitter, links below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you very soon to discuss what the f*** is going on with Gojo returning.
Alright, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share the video with your friends, and I'll see y'all boys in the next video. Bye.